Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I came across something this evening. I spent a little bit of time poring over the data. I am going to link Greg Nuckols right up below his synopsis of it from his blog, and I appreciate the fact that Greg was the first guy I've seen in the community to put this out. I was unaware of the study. Pretty interesting stuff. So I'm going to give credit where credit is due for Greg hitting it first, and I will link his stuff down below. Now, that being said, where do we even go with this study? Let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing. Let's do a little crafting and let's talk about this. Cliff notes. The study's interesting. As I've said before, I'm interested in the possibility of intermittent fasting actually having longevity and health benefits. I don't think it offers body composition benefits outside of caloric control. I think it's not particularly good for gaining muscle mass, and have some concerns about it. But from a longevity perspective, I think it has some promise, but I want to see more longitudinal studies done on it with larger populations than what we have before I'm willing to say, hey, this is something really beneficial, because we just don't have enough data to say that yet. But I still think it's a promising area of research, and I just want to see more research done on it. Again, just because something is promising doesn't mean that it's going to be conclusive, and we're a long way from saying that. But I mean, the concept behind intermittent fasting having some possible health benefits, like maybe slowing cancer growth and things, maybe slowing aging a little bit, okay, I'm on board with the idea. I just want to see a lot more evidence before I jump in and say, hey, yeah, this is true. We're a long way from having that evidence, but I think it's promising, and I think it's fascinating as hell. So what we have here is actually on body composition, hormones, everything else. Really, this study for me, when we dig into it, it leaves a lot of unanswered questions. I would just really like to see a lot better data, bigger groups. I see some problems with some of the data itself, though. Some stuff that bothers me. And when I look at some things, I had to actually check to make sure they used a DEXA scan. They didn't use bioimpedance or BOD-POD because the numbers seem implausible. For both groups, the amount of muscle these guys gained bothered me when I looked at what they were doing. You guys can see all the charts and the data down below on Greg's page. He linked all the relevant charts. It's all organized, easily accessible for you guys. All right, I crunched the numbers for people who aren't going to want to convert kilos into pounds. These test subjects were on average 29 years old. Their average height was 5'10". Their average fat-free mass index was 23.5, which makes them advanced for drug-free lifters, which made sense because they all apparently had at least 5 years of continuous weight training experience. So you would expect them to have exhausted most of their gains. And 23.5 fat-free mass index, as I said already, we know the average natural bodybuilder competitor is around 23.5 to 24. The average steroid user is 25.5 on the fat-free mass index. So these guys really are not that much smaller than the average steroid user when this has been studied in detail. And I've always said when people get lean, 10% body fat and under, the genetically elite are going to be capped at about a 25 fat-free mass index. Very few natties are going to reach that. These guys are 23.5. They don't have a lot of room left to grow. They've made 90+% of their drug-free gains. And there's nothing wrong with that. And you would expect that. They all had a minimum of 5 years of continuous weight training experience with no real downtime. That was one of the requirements for the study. My problem is with the amount of muscle they gained in 8 weeks. That's something that threw me for a loop, and that's something I really want to question, because these guys were put on an okay training program. I didn't think it was that great. It's all right. I've seen better. I've written better. And the fact of the matter is, when I look at the kilos, I converted it over to pounds. The guys in both groups gained like 1.5 pounds of muscle. DEXA scan confirmed in 8 weeks. Well, the problem is the intermittent fasting group was on a cut. When you compare them, when you look at the calories, the intermittent fasting guys ate 200 less calories on average a day. Greg gets into a lot of that, and I agree with his synopsis there. I think he's dead on. It was an appetite control for them. They all lost a little bit of weight. It was only like 1 pound, but they lost 1 pound over that 8 weeks while gaining muscle. But they gained 1.5 pounds of muscle. Well, the problem there, let's draw that out. If you're capable on a given program of gaining 1.5 pounds of muscle in 8 weeks, that's 10 pounds a year. Advanced lifters don't gain 10 pounds of muscle in a year without drugs. And these guys did it while losing body weight. Not a lot of body weight, but they lost a body weight. And again, Greg agreed, their deficit was about 200 a day, and that would account for the amount of fat they lost. They lost body fat, they lost weight, but gained 1.5 pounds of muscle. Their bench press strength went up, their leg press strength went up. We're not talking a lot. The bench press only went up about 3 kilos. That's what, about 7 or 8 pounds? Their max is on average, but that's still an improvement. Pressing strength going up while losing weight. For advanced lifters, relatively rare. Any strength increase, even maintaining your strength, is hard. So some things kind of look a little fishy there. I would almost want to see a toxicology. I'm almost wondering if some of the guys, if a couple of the guys in the group, if you got 34, went on a little bit of gear or something, because it skewed the numbers, because I don't see the numbers for the individual subjects to see if there was a couple of outliers that threw the numbers all out of whack. Because that's all it would take, would be for 1 or 2 guys at each group to do a blast of gear during this to skew the numbers, because the muscle gain is unrealistic for lifters of their level. And again, it's not like they went on some crazy advanced program. They went on a 3-day-a-week basic body part split with moderate volume, moderate reps, moderate weight. I'm just bothered a little bit by the fact that they gained muscle while losing weight, particularly the intermittent fasting group, gaining 1.5 pounds of muscle while the scale weight's going down, and gaining pressing strength. But okay, I mean, the thing is, though, at the end of the day, we still got to look at the law of small numbers here, and ultimately we've got to realize this is only 34 people. So again, it's very easy for a couple of outliers to really throw those numbers off. You might find if we had taken 100 people in each group, did a little toxicology, made them swear not to use any drugs, because again, one guy in each group doing a blast of steroids will screw the numbers up completely with groups this small, because you're looking at 17 guys per group. It doesn't take but 1 or 2 guys to mess the whole study up. So again, you've got to look at the law of small numbers, which means some of it's inconclusive, and maybe we might have found that, the guys only gained 2 ounces of muscle with bigger groups that you can account for those things. But that being said, there's still some general trends we can look at. And again, I feel like the groups are too small to draw massive, meaningful conclusions. I think partially because the intermittent fasting group lost weight. Now, we saw shifts in their hormones that are indicative of people who are losing weight. They're in a calorie deficit. Their testosterone went down, their IGF-1 went down, T3 went down, just slightly. Not tremendously, not like any levels you'd be like, oh my God, their testosterone went down. Your testosterone levels always go down when you lose weight. A lot of you guys aren't aware of that, but any weight loss causes a little bit of hit in your testosterone, T3, IGF-1, things like that. But you know what? Losing weight also can add to longevity for some of those reasons too. Getting that IGF-1 down, losing body weight, some of that, as long as you're staying at a healthy body weight, in the healthy range, can increase longevity, and it can improve a lot of those health markers. So again, it gets tricky when we have to look at this stuff with the weight loss. We know fasting, due to the weight loss ends of it, can have certain health marker increases. But the health marker increases we saw here were indicative of weight loss. It doesn't tell us that the fasting itself is really helping, and that's the thing that makes this data inconclusive. We're seeing some positives. Like, again, their lipid profiles improved, their cholesterol improved, but they lost weight. They were in a calorie deficit while exercising hard. See the problem there? Everyone's blood work improves when they lose body fat and body weight while exercising hard in a calorie deficit. Your health markers always improve. Your cholesterol always improves. Your fasting glucose always improves, even if you eat a terrible diet half the time. That's actually something researchers have noticed. Remember the guy on the Twinkie diet? The guy lived on Twinkies, a little bit of protein shakes, and a vitamin, and lost 30 pounds, and his cholesterol improved, fasting glucose improved, all that stuff while eating complete garbage, because that's the general trend, and he exercised. So the problem we have here is that because we weren't able to get them on a normalized diet, an isocaloric diet, they lost weight. So it's hard to separate what was the fasting from the weight loss. And honestly, I like the efforts being put in here, but I think this is something else being shown, that for a lot of people who are at a normal weight, who are active, who don't struggle with appetite, intermittent fasting might almost guarantee weight loss. meaning that fasted window of not eating for 16 hours every day, a lot of people, if they're still eating a somewhat balanced diet, and these guys were on a balanced diet, they were definitely on a balanced diet. When you look at the numbers there, it looks really reasonable. They struggled to eat enough to maintain their body weight. They were at a small calorie deficit. And I think, again, that goes back to the point of intermittent fasting works on recomposition for guys because it puts them in a small calorie deficit. They lose a little body fat. You lose a little body fat, you always look more impressive aesthetically. Your health markers always improve. But the problem we really have here is that, again, you can't differentiate on this study if these improved health markers were due to the fasting or due to the weight loss. And until we get a larger study, what I would love to see is 100 people in each group, 500 people in each group. All right, give me 500 test subjects in each group, run them for a year straight. And I know that people, it's going to be hard to get funding for that, but if you really want to have an interest in intermittent fasting, we really need bigger groups and we need longer and longer studies so that we can find out what's going on, because what we really need is to get people on an isocaloric diet and see if it's purely the appetite suppressing end that's causing people to lose weight that improves the blood markers, because otherwise we don't know if the fasting is actually helping or not until we get bigger groups to tell. And I want to believe, because I think it's reasonable to assume that fasting could do some of these things that we're looking at, again, in terms of longevity, improving cholesterol, lowering cancer rates. It's a reasonable hypothesis. But until we get these people to where we get them to maintain their body weight, better yet, you know what I really want to see? Give me 100 test subjects and have them gain a pound or two over that 8 weeks, even if it's just muscle, through weight training, where they gain a little bit of weight and they overeat just a small amount, and let's see if their blood markers improve still. So give us an isocaloric group and a hypercaloric group to where we see, recomposition, maintenance calories, and then one where they gain a little bit of weight. And let's see if we see that IGF-1 decrease, see if the lipid profiles improve, the fasting blood glucose improves. That's what we really need to see, because that's what we're looking for with intermittent fasting for the health markers. And because these guys lost weight, it's too hard for us to tell. We just can't tell based upon that. And so I think the study's interesting, but I think what this study does, it's by no means anywhere near a nail in the coffin, because it doesn't prove what we need to prove. I think it shows kind of the direction that researchers need to go with it. They should be able to look at this now and say, okay, we can't tell if these improved blood work is due to weight loss or not, or if it's the fasting. So we need to get a bigger group next time and monitor them more closely. Make sure there's no drugs involved. Let's have them maintain weight and another group gain a little bit of weight, and then have a control group. Then let's look at those variables, and then let's see if we see improvements. Let's see if their fasting blood glucose improves and their cholesterol improves. And if we see a little bit of weight gain while intermittent fasting, and we see those health markers improve, then we've got something. Then we can step back and say, okay, we actually have some good data now that we can use to say, hey, intermittent fasting might help you live longer. And that's what we're looking for. We need to get to the truth of the matter of it. And we get to the truth of the matter by more carefully controlled studies. Then we do that. Then we can run out and get bigger groups. Then we can maybe get some funding for some longitudinal studies. Let's get a 5-year study with 1,000 test subjects. And let's really, really see what happens with their quality of life and health markers and things. Because, again, you would think people would have enough interest in this because of the potential health ramifications and everything else, that you would think that there should be some people out there willing to fund this medically. Because that's really what we need to get to if we want to look at this and say intermittent fasting is doing something really useful here. And I would love to see that study happen. So hey, if there's anybody watching any of my videos who does fund studies or puts grants together for things like that, I think that's the sort of thing we need to be looking for. If we really want to get to dietary practice and how it affects health in populations and longevity, I think we really do need to see a big longitudinal study on intermittent fasting. I think it could be really beneficial to expand our body of knowledge in this area. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.